March 12, 1956. MGM Studios, Culver City. Grace Kelly sits across from studio chief Dore Schary. She's 26 years old, America's princess. The most elegant actress in Hollywood. They're finalizing her loan out to Warner Brothers. For Giant. The biggest role of 1956. Leslie Benedict, a Maryland socialite who marries a Texas rancher. 3 hours of screen time. Oscar bait. Career-defining material. Grace has already approved the script. Wardrobe tests are scheduled. George Stevens wants her desperately. Rock Hudson requested her specifically. This is Grace's chance to prove herself as a serious dramatic actress. Not just the Ice Princess, not just Hitchcock's blonde. A real performer capable of complex, demanding material. The contracts are on Shary's desk, ready for signatures. Then Grace's assistant bursts through the door. "Miss Kelly, urgent call from Monaco." Grace excuses herself, takes the call in the outer office, speaks in hushed tones for 10 minutes. When she returns, everything has changed. "Mr. Schary," she says quietly, "I need to withdraw from Giant." "What do you mean?" "Prince Rainier has asked me to marry him. I've said yes. The wedding is planned for April. I can't commit to a film that shoots for 6 months." Schary stares. "Grace, this is Giant. The biggest film Warner's making this year. George Stevens, Rock Hudson. Your chance at a serious Oscar role. I understand, but I've made my choice." 24 hours later, Elizabeth Taylor gets the call. The role Grace Kelly was born to play is suddenly available, and Elizabeth Taylor's career changes forever. To understand what happened, you need to know how perfectly Grace Kelly fit Leslie Benedict. Winter, 1955. Warner Brothers is adapting Edna Ferber's best-selling novel Giant. The story of a Maryland socialite who marries a Texas cattle baron and spends decades fighting racism and sexism in the Old West. Leslie Benedict is East Coast aristocracy, educated, refined, someone who speaks multiple languages and knows which fork to use, but also strong-willed, feminist, willing to stand up to powerful men. In other words, Grace Kelly. Grace was born in Philadelphia. Real aristocracy, not Hollywood invention. Her father was a successful businessman, Olympic rowing champion. Her mother was a former model and socialite. Grace attended exclusive private schools, studied acting at the Academy of Dramatic Arts. When she came to Hollywood in 1950, Grace brought genuine class. Not the manufactured elegance that studios created. The real thing. Alfred Hitchcock understood this immediately. Cast her in Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, To Catch a Thief. Grace became his perfect blonde. Cool, mysterious, untouchable. But Grace wanted more than being Hitchcock's muse. She wanted serious dramatic roles. Parts that showcased her intelligence, not just her beauty. The problem was typecasting. Hollywood saw Grace as the Ice Princess, perfect for thrillers and romantic comedies, too elegant for grittier material. Giant was different. Leslie Benedict required real aristocracy, someone who could believably come from Maryland high society, someone who could stand toe-to-toe with Texas oil barons. George Stevens, the director, wanted Grace from the beginning. "She has the background," he told Warner executives. "Leslie Benedict isn't acting for Grace Kelly. She's just being herself." In November 1955, Stevens approached Grace directly, sent her the script. Grace read it overnight, called him the next morning. "I want this role," she said. "Whatever it takes." Getting Grace Kelly meant dealing with MGM. She was under exclusive contract to Louis B. Mayer. Warner Brothers needed MGM's permission to borrow her. The negotiations were complex. MGM wanted compensation, a trade agreement, Warner stars in exchange for Grace's services. But MGM also recognized the opportunity. Giant was prestige material, Oscar potential. Having their star in George Stevens' new film would boost MGM's reputation. Dore Schary, who'd taken over from Mayer, approved the loan-out in December 1955. Grace would be available starting March 1956. Filming would run through August. Perfect timing. Grace began preparing immediately. She studied Texas history, read about cattle ranching, practiced the subtle accent changes Leslie undergoes living in Texas for decades. She worked with costume designer Marjorie Best on Leslie's wardrobe. Elegant Eastern clothes gradually giving way to practical Western wear. The visual evolution of a character adapting to a new world. Grace also met with George Stevens multiple times. They discussed Leslie's character arc, her relationship with Rock Hudson's Bick Benedict, her growing awareness of racial injustice. Stevens was thrilled. Grace understood Leslie instinctively. The sophistication was natural. The moral backbone was already there. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. Grace doesn't need to become Leslie, Stevens told his assistant director. Leslie is already inside Grace. We just need to let her out. By February 1956, everything was set. Grace had costume fittings scheduled, script read-throughs planned. Warner Brothers had built elaborate Texas ranch sets. Rock Hudson was excited to work with her. "Grace brings class to every project," he told reporters. "This film will be something special." But in Monaco, Prince Rainier was making different plans. Prince Rainier III of Monaco had been pursuing Grace Kelly since they met at the Cannes Film Festival in May 1955. The meeting was arranged by magazine editors as a publicity stunt. Grace was there promoting To Catch a Thief. Rainier needed positive press for Monaco. What started as a photo opportunity became a courtship. Rainier was smitten with Grace's elegance and intelligence. Grace was intrigued by his sophistication and genuine interest in her mind, not just her fame. They corresponded throughout 1955. Letters, telephone calls, carefully orchestrated visits that avoided press attention. Rainier made his intentions clear early. He needed a wife. Monaco needed a princess. But not just any actress would do. She had to have real class, real intelligence, real moral character. Grace Kelly fit perfectly. But there was a problem. Grace's career. She was under contract to MGM through 1959. She had commitments, projects lined up, a carefully planned trajectory towards serious dramatic roles. Rainier understood, but made his position clear. If Grace married him, she would retire from acting. Royal duties would be full-time, no exceptions. Grace faced an impossible choice. The career she'd built over 6 years, or becoming an actual princess. Throughout late 1955, she agonized. Friends advised both directions. Her parents favored the royal marriage. MGM executives panicked at losing their most elegant star. In January 1956, Rainier forced the decision. He proposed officially, but with conditions. The engagement would be announced immediately, the wedding planned for April, and Grace's acting career would end with her current commitments. Giant was her current commitment. Grace said yes to Rainier, but she tried to negotiate. Could she honor her existing contracts, finish Giant as planned, end her career gracefully? Rainier's answer was firm. No. Royal engagements don't accommodate film schedules. The wedding was April 18th. Grace needed to be in Monaco preparing for royal life by March 15th. Giant's shooting schedule ran March through August. Impossible to reconcile. Grace had to choose the role that could define her dramatic career, or the prince who wanted to make her a real princess. She chose Monaco. March 12, 1956. 11:47 a.m. Grace Kelly sits in Dore Schary's office at MGM. The Giant contracts are ready for final signatures. Grace has been dreading this moment for weeks. Since accepting Rainier's proposal, she's tried to find compromises. Delay the wedding, shorten the film schedule. Nothing worked. The call from Monaco is Prince Rainier himself, reminding Grace of her commitments. The engagement announcement is scheduled for tomorrow, March 13th. Press conferences in Monaco and Philadelphia simultaneously. After tomorrow, Grace Kelly, the actress, officially becomes Grace Kelly, the future princess. No going back. I have to withdraw, Grace tells Schary after the call. Grace, be reasonable. This is Giant, George Stevens, your chance at serious dramatic work. I understand what I'm giving up. Do you? This isn't just one role. This sets the pattern. If you can walk away from Giant, you can walk away from anything. Your entire career trajectory changes. Grace's eyes fill with tears. I know. Stevens has built this production around you. Rock Hudson requested you specifically. Warner's has invested months of preparation. I'll make whatever financial amends are necessary. This isn't about money, Grace. This is about your artistic legacy. In 10 years, what will you regret more? Not making Giant? Or not marrying a prince? Grace considers this. For a long moment, she's silent. I honestly don't know, she finally says. But I've given Rainier my word. I can't break it now. Schary makes one final attempt. What if we delay the wedding? Just 6 months. Let you finish Giant and perhaps one more film. Rainier won't agree. Royal schedules don't accommodate Hollywood productions. Then this is really goodbye. I'm afraid so. At 12:15 p.m., Grace Kelly officially withdraws from Giant. The role she was born to play goes to the next name on George Stevens' list, Elizabeth Taylor. March 13th, 1956, 8:30 a.m. Elizabeth Taylor is having breakfast in her Bel Air mansion when her agent calls. Liz, how quickly can you get to Warner Brothers? Grace Kelly just dropped out of Giant. Stevens wants to meet with you immediately. Elizabeth nearly drops her coffee cup. Giant is the prestige project of 1956. George Stevens directing, Rock Hudson starring. The kind of serious material Elizabeth has been craving. What happened to Grace? Engaged to Prince Rainier, retiring from acting. The role is yours if you want it. Elizabeth wants it desperately. At 24, she's tired of being typecast as the beautiful young thing. She wants roles with substance, parts that showcase her intelligence and emotional range. Giant offers exactly that. Leslie Benedict ages from 20 to 50 over the film's timeline. She fights racism, sexism, and her own husband's outdated values. It's the most complex female character in any 1956 script. Elizabeth arrives at Warner Brothers by 10 a.m. George Stevens is waiting with Rock Hudson and the producers. "Elizabeth, I'll be direct," Stevens says. "Grace Kelly was my first choice for Leslie, but she's no longer available. You're my second choice. The question is, are you interested?" "Absolutely. This isn't Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. This isn't glamorous. Leslie ages significantly, wears ordinary clothes, fights social injustice. It's demanding dramatic work." "That's exactly what I want." Rock Hudson speaks up. "Elizabeth, I had hoped to work with Grace, but I'm excited about this alternative. You bring different qualities, more earthiness, more fire." "The schedule is intensive," Stevens warns. 6 months of filming, location work in Texas, long days. Are you committed?" "Completely." Within hours, Elizabeth Taylor is officially cast as Leslie Benedict. The role Grace Kelly abandoned becomes Elizabeth's breakthrough dramatic performance. But there's irony in the timing. Grace's engagement announcement hits newspapers the same day Elizabeth signs her Giant contract. Headlines read, "Grace Kelly to marry Prince," and "Elizabeth Taylor cast in Giant," two careers diverging at the exact same moment. Elizabeth throws herself into preparing for Leslie Benedict. She has weeks to master material Grace had been studying for months. The challenge is enormous. Leslie begins as East Coast aristocracy and evolves into a Texas matriarch. Elizabeth needs to convey decades of character development. Physical aging, emotional deepening, regional adaptation. Elizabeth works with dialogue coaches on accent subtleties. Leslie's speech patterns change gradually as she adopts Texas influences while maintaining her sophisticated background. Costume designer Marjorie Best adapts the wardrobe concepts created for Grace. Elizabeth's different body type requires adjustments, but the essential character arc remains. Elegant Eastern fashion giving way to practical Western clothes. The most challenging aspect is aging makeup. Elizabeth must convincingly portray Leslie from age 20 to 50. Prosthetics, gray hair, posture changes, voice modulation. Elizabeth studies the script obsessively. Leslie's character journey is the spine of Giant. Her growing awareness of racial injustice, her conflicts with her husband's traditional values, her determination to change Texas society from within. George Stevens works closely with Elizabeth on character interpretation. Leslie isn't just beautiful or sympathetic. She's intelligent, stubborn, sometimes wrong, but always principled. "Grace would have brought natural aristocracy," Stevens tells Elizabeth. "You bring passion and fire. Different interpretation, but equally valid." Elizabeth appreciates Stevens' honesty. She's not trying to replace Grace Kelly. She's creating her own version of Leslie Benedict. By April, Elizabeth feels ready. The role Grace abandoned has become Elizabeth's opportunity to prove herself as a serious dramatic actress. April 18th, 1956, Monaco. Grace Kelly marries Prince Rainier III in the wedding of the century. 600 guests. Global television coverage. The actress becomes an actual princess. The same day, Elizabeth Taylor is in Marfa, Texas, filming Giant. While Grace says, "I do," in Monaco's cathedral, Elizabeth is shooting scenes as Leslie Benedict adjusting to ranch life. The contrast is striking. Grace in a Helen Rose wedding gown that cost $7,000. Elizabeth in simple ranch clothes covered with Texas dust. The press coverage is overwhelming. Grace's wedding dominates headlines worldwide. But entertainment reporters also note the irony. Elizabeth Taylor is playing the role Grace was born to play. Critics question the casting change. Could Elizabeth Taylor convincingly portray East Coast aristocracy? Did she have the refinement necessary for Leslie Benedict? George Stevens defends his decision publicly. Elizabeth brings qualities to Leslie that Grace couldn't. More warmth, more accessibility. Leslie needs to connect with Texas people, not just impress them. But privately, Stevens wonders, Grace's natural elegance was irreplaceable. Elizabeth must work harder to convey Leslie's sophisticated background. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us. Rock Hudson notices the difference immediately. Grace would have effortlessly projected aristocracy. Elizabeth has to act aristocracy, which creates different energy. It's not better or worse, Hudson tells Stevens. Just different. Elizabeth's Leslie will be more passionate, less cool. Elizabeth reads about Grace's wedding in her hotel room that evening. She studies photographs of Grace in her royal wedding gown. Elegant, serene, perfect. Elizabeth wonders if she's made the right choice. Grace chose love over career. Elizabeth chose career over whatever else she might have chosen. Only time will tell who chose correctly. Filming Giant through summer 1956, Elizabeth discovers the role Grace abandoned suits her perfectly. Leslie Benedict isn't just aristocratic. She's fierce, determined, willing to fight for her beliefs. These qualities align with Elizabeth's natural personality more than Grace's refined restraint. The aging process throughout the film showcases Elizabeth's dramatic range. She convincingly portrays Leslie from naive young bride to experienced Texas matriarch. The physical transformation is remarkable. Critics visiting the set are impressed. Variety reports, Elizabeth Taylor is delivering her most mature performance. The aristocratic aspects work surprisingly well. Rock Hudson develops strong chemistry with Elizabeth. Their scenes crackle with authentic conflict and attraction. Hudson later admits, Elizabeth brought passion to Leslie that Grace might not have. Different interpretation, but dramatically powerful. George Stevens recognizes he's capturing something special. Elizabeth's Leslie is more emotionally accessible than Grace's version would have been. The audience can relate to Elizabeth's Leslie more easily. James Dean, playing Jet Rink, works particularly well with Elizabeth. Their scenes have sexual tension that might not have existed with Grace's cooler interpretation. By August, Stevens knows he has Elizabeth's breakthrough dramatic performance. She's proven herself capable of serious, complex material. The beautiful starlet has become a serious actress. Giant premieres October 10th, 1956. Elizabeth's performance receives unanimous critical praise. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times writes, Elizabeth Taylor gives her finest performance as Leslie. She brings warmth and intelligence to what could have been a thankless role. Variety notes, Taylor's dramatic growth is evident throughout. She convincingly ages decades and develops genuine character depth. The Hollywood Reporter concludes, Giant proves Elizabeth Taylor is more than just beautiful. She's a serious actress, capable of complex material. Elizabeth receives her first Academy Award nomination for Giant. At 24, she's achieved the dramatic credibility she's always craved. Meanwhile, Princess Grace settles into royal life in Monaco. No more film offers, no more acting challenges. Royal duties and charity work fill her days. Friends report Grace occasionally watches Giant on television. She never comments publicly, but privately she's said to be impressed with Elizabeth's performance. Elizabeth made Leslie more passionate than I would have, Grace reportedly tells close friends. Different interpretation, but very effective. Looking back decades later, both women lived with the consequences of that March 1956 decision. Elizabeth Taylor's career flourished. Giant led to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, for which she won the Academy Award. She became one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic actresses. Grace Kelly lived as royalty for 26 years until her death in 1982. She raised 3 children, represented Monaco internationally, but never acted again. The question haunts film historians. What if Grace had chosen differently? Would Grace's Giant have been better than Elizabeth's? Different, certainly. More refined, less passionate, but not necessarily superior. Would Grace have won the Academy Award? Possibly. The role seemed tailored for her background and skills. Would Elizabeth have found other dramatic opportunities? Eventually. But Giant accelerated her serious career by years. The deeper question: did Grace regret her choice? Evidence suggests mixed feelings. She lived comfortably as royalty, but she missed the creative challenges of acting. In 1976, Grace told a reporter, "Sometimes I wonder what my career would have been like if I'd continued. Giant was such a wonderful role." March 12, 1956. One phone call. 2 careers forever changed. Grace Kelly chose love over ambition, prince over profession, royal marriage over dramatic breakthrough. Elizabeth Taylor chose opportunity over whatever else beckoned. Career advancement over personal considerations, artistic growth over security. Neither choice was wrong. Grace lived as an actual princess for 26 years. Elizabeth became one of cinema's most respected actresses. But Giant remains the role that might have been Grace's greatest triumph. The dramatic breakthrough she'd always wanted. The proof that she was more than Hitchcock's perfect blonde. Instead, Giant became Elizabeth's artistic awakening. The role that proved her dramatic capabilities, the foundation for her mature career. One role, 2 actresses, 2 completely different destinies. Grace Kelly was cast first. Elizabeth Taylor made it immortal. And Hollywood history changed forever because a prince wouldn't wait for a movie to finish filming. But Giant remains the role that might have been Grace's greatest triumph. The dramatic breakthrough she'd always wanted. The proof that she was more than Hitchcock's perfect blonde. Instead, Giant became Elizabeth's artistic awakening. The role that proved her dramatic capabilities, the foundation for her mature career. One role, 2 actresses, 2 completely different destinies. Grace Kelly was cast first. Elizabeth Taylor made it immortal. And Hollywood history changed forever because a prince wouldn't wait for a movie to finish filming. Behind Hollywood's golden facade, the biggest stars hid the darkest secrets. Every glamorous smile concealed scandals that would shock the world. If you want to uncover more hidden truths about classic Hollywood's biggest legends, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. The real stories are always more shocking than the movies.